Hello YouTube, 2013 Dodge Journey 3.6 liter V6, and we are changing the engine oil pan gasket. So if you look underneath, it's all wet and greasy, so we got the gasket and we'll get it replaced. This is the gasket. I will leave a link in the description to the video for all the parts and tools that you might need. To get this job started, we need to remove this plastic cover. So it's one clip over here, then 10 mil bolt here and 10 mil here. Hopefully this will come off. Okay, so this cover is off. As I said, 2 bolts and 1 plastic clip. So now we have access to the oil pan. Next we'll do the oil drain. So we use 13 mil socket. Almost feels like ½ inch would be better for this, but 13 mil did the trick. So we'll just remove the drain plug and we'll drain all the oil from the engine. More we can get now, less we'll need to deal after we remove the pan. Next, what we will do while we still draining the oil and have oil pan underneath, we will use a little wire brush and a brake clean and basically go around and clean this engine part. Anything above the oil pan, there's lots and lots of junk. Well, grease to be exact, grease and mud. And the reason why we want to clean it now, so when we remove that oil pan, we don't want anything to be falling down and getting into the engine. So we'll just go around with a brush and a brake clean. We'll get it cleaned. So now when the oil is draining, transmission is relatively clean, we can go ahead and remove all those 10 mil bolts all the way around. Yeah, so now when all the bolts and nuts are removed, and if your transmission is still sealed from a factory, they would usually use RTV silicone, so it's stuck and stuck well. If it's been already replaced, there is a chance that there will be actual gasket, same type as we replaced now. But at this point, just want to get with the putty knife or with the really thin screwdriver and break the seal. Okay, so I will actually try to stick in a little screwdriver, and you don't need to go from this side specifically, but this is probably the easiest to access. Now we created a gap, you can go with the other screwdriver and get it loose. Nice. This wasn't bad at all. Let's take a look at the engine side. So the nice part is that majority of the gasket stayed on a pan. There is not much on the engine side, so it shouldn't be too difficult to clean that up. In terms of the pan, I would usually look for a magnet in the lower spot, but I cannot see any. Not sure why they didn't put one in, so it usually serves to capture all the metal shavings. So at this point, we will just take a scraper and we'll clean all that old RTV silicone and also all the debris, all the old oil, basically make it clean. Alright, so One thing to note, if you are going to use RTV silicone, not the actual gasket, make sure when you apply silicone you go all the way around the holes. You can see that in majority of the cases they went kind of in the middle of the hole, but then nothing was on the outside. And that could be the reason why it is leaking. But at this point we will try to just use the razor blade and scrape all the silicone. You don't want to go too hard, you don't want to scratch the surface. Slightly different when you use silicone because it will has better tendency to fill the gaps, but with gaskets you might just go kind of over top and scrape it until you get nice flat surface ready for the gasket. Another thing that I should have mentioned, if you going to use RTV silicone, please read the instruction, check how long it should cure before you can fill it with oil. In many cases when shops are rushing to get this done, they will put your silicone, they will leave it for a few minutes and then will fill it up with oil and let it go because they don't want to keep your vehicle more than they need. And if your silicone is not cured, not only it probably won't cure properly at all in the future and it will start leaking again, also when oil gets to it and it's not dry, your silicone can get into the oil and into the system. So if you do it by yourself, leave it for 10, 12, I don't know, read the instruction. If sometimes it's like 24 hours before you can put it into the service. And in many cases when you use the RTV, you apply it, you put it on, you finger tight it, you don't torque it, let it dry, so you basically form a gasket and then you come and torque it later on when the silicone is dry. So please read the instruction. Different silicones are for different purposes. That's why I like to use the gasket, because it doesn't need to dry and it's easy to remove next time if you need to get inside. Next we'll do the same with the engine side, so we'll clean it from oil, checks for any pieces of, like in here, the silicone, so we'll clean that off. We just want to make sure that we have nice flat and dry surface for the gasket, because if it goes on a dry surface, most likely it will stick well. If there is oil, if there is any sort of junk, including silicone, it will not stick well and most likely will develop a leak. So let's get this clean. The oil pan is clean, the engine is clean, so I have put the gasket on top. At this point it moves quite freely, so we will take a few bolts. In terms of the bolts, it's important, if the silicone was used before, there is a chance that on a tip of the bolt there will be some silicone sticking out. So make sure that you clean it, because depends how it goes inside, it might change basically the length of the bolt, because you will have like a quarter of an inch of the silicone at the end. It will impact the torque. Just make sure that your bolts are clean from the old RTV silicone. So at this point, in order to keep the gasket in place, we will try to install a few bolts. If that does not work, we might need to use just a few spots of RTV silicone. But it seems like it might be working well with the gasket itself. Just a few spots. So when we get under the car and align it with the engine, it's not all moving around. But again, if your gasket does not hold, just apply a few droplets of silicone on each corner so it stays in place. Now I'll just get onto the vehicle and get it attached. Okay, so the pen is in place. I got the bolt started with fingers, just finger tight, not even finger tight, just started. So now I'll just go with my impact and get it snug. Don't torque them by any means. You just want to make sure that they are all the way in, and after that we will go ahead and torque them. Okay, now when the bolts are snug, we will torque them to 90 inch-pounds. I don't have a specific torque for this vehicle, but general, judging on the size of bolt and application, we're looking at 90 inch-pounds. In terms of the pattern, again, don't have a built-in for that, but we will just kind of go from the middle. We'll do those sides and those simultaneously, so we'll kind of start here. Do this one. Now move to the other side. And we'll slowly move to the outside. So I'll do. And I'm using crisscross, but at the same time, just making sure that we are moving into the to the left and to the right. While we do that, not sure if it matters too much, but just want to make sure when you do this that you're not kind of locking the metal loose while torquing your ends. Okay, let me finish this. Next we will make sure that our oil drain plug is tight. Now we will attach the plastic cover. Kind of goes behind, and then you bolt it to the frame. Okay, one important thing, this handle has to go underneath, in between, like that. We will repurpose the old plastic clip that we removed. Put it in, press it in. Then we'll get those two bolts on top tight. Well, good. So now we can fill it up with oil. Alrighty, so we are under the hood, and since we changing the oil, we should replace the filter too. We can get to the filter from this cover, but just to make life a bit easier, we'll remove the entire cover. I don't know why they made this little hole here. Doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, the filter is here, so we'll get this cap off. Get the filter of this 22 mil socket. Most likely you can probably use the wrench too. There's lots of room. We'll just place some rag, catch any oil that it will be dripping from the filter. Right. We'll just get the old filter out of the housing. The new filter comes with the new O-ring, so we'll use a pick to get the old O-ring off. We'll use some brake clean to clean the thread and everything inside. Okay, so now we'll get the new O-ring back in. Get the new filter, and I will leave the links to the filter in the description to the video, and just push it in until it clicks. The last thing we want to do, I'm going to grab some fresh oil and put it on that O-ring. Now we can put the filter back in. So I'm not sure if this spring is supposed to be like this. I believe there's supposed to be a plastic piece on top, but that's how it was before, so we will put it back. There was not much spillage when we removed the filter, so the rag was not really that important to have. Now we'll torque it to 20 foot-pounds. It doesn't have to be too tight, as you can imagine. 20 foot-pounds is not a lot, because all the sealing is done with that O-ring. Now we are ready to put the oil in. In total, it's supposed to take 5.6 liters of oil. That's with oil filter. So I will put 5 liters. We'll start the engine, let it warm up a bit, and then check it with the dipstick, and we'll top it up if needed. Quite important not to overfill, because like if you overfill your engine with oil, it gets all foamy and the lubrication goes down significantly. So quite honestly, it's better to be a little bit low on oil than too much on oil. So don't overfill. For that same reason, they said we'll start with 5 liters and then we'll check with the dipstick. At this point, I think we will call it, since I will be replacing the thermostat and changing coolant next, and I don't want this engine to be hot. So we have changed the oil pan gasket, we have changed the filter, filled it with oil. We just need to check the final level. That should be it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please check all the links to the parts and tools that you might need for this job, and do it yourself. Take care, guys.